Hello everyone, welcome to the Northland Artists Conversation. My name is Mark Kelly, I am your host. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you very much for checking us out. There are always a few kind of cool things you get to see when you watch the video. If you're listening to us on the Spotify, the Apple Podcasts, or the YouTube podcasts, thanks very much. As long as you're consuming the content, any way you do it is totally cool with us. We really appreciate you joining us. This is the first podcast of 2025, and what a banger. What an absolute banger. I'm going to flick to my camera. John Leigh Calder. Now, John reached out to the podcast and said, hey, I'm an artist. I've seen your guys' work. I'd love to be on. Would you be interested? And I was like, hell yeah, man. Send him through the bits and pieces and got him to kind of send them all back to us. And I had a look and I was like, wow, this dude's, he's done a lot. And, he was firing through tracks for me to listen to some of his former works. And I was like, yeah, this will be a really cool podcast. And honestly, it was. It was really cool. So many awesome stories. He talks about, his time with a drummer that he ended up going on to perform with a classic 60s, 70s band called The Jam. Talked about working with a guy who had worked with David Bowie. Played in some of the most amazing venues that you can think of. So I'm going to cut this intro nice and short because I want you guys to check it out. Let's sit down and have a conversation with John Leigh Calder.
Let's go.
Yeah, well, yes, we do. So I would normally say to people we don't have a start, but that is always kind of a lie. We do have. I like to do a formal introduction. To officially welcome you to the first podcast of 2025.
It is too. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. So we're kind of recording this in the middle of Jan. So John Leigh Calder, thank you very, very much for joining us in the studio.
Mark. Thank you very much,
Man,
Mark.
I appreciate it. Now. When we sort of do all podcasts, we will always spend time with the guests inside, and we do that to kind of help people. Sometimes people feel at ease when they're, a lot of artists naturally aren't comfortable talking about themselves. They just kind of want to do the work.
Yeah, I'm a little bit like that, but I don't sort of overanalyze it.
Nice.
Because otherwise it doesn't quite happen for me, because I'm naturally, as a performer, ad-libbing most of the time.
Yeah.
Sort of on the spot too, And actually I enjoy doing my solo performances, which is actually the hardest thing I do, because I'm up for doing 2 45-minute spots.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And when you're playing solo double bass and you're singing and you're trying to sort of emulate, not copy, but, maybe trumpet or saxophone sounds, or you're doing scat phrasing to fill out that thing you're doing.
Yeah, the sections,
we'll call it a number, say.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll just make up a number on the spot and just let the words come out of my head.
Wow.
Particularly, we were saying about hip-hop, but I'm most probably more of a loose term analogy. I'm a jazz blues performer from a jazz direction. I can't really employ blues musicians to do what I do.
Right.
I have to have jazz players to play what I do. It's mainly because of the melodic complexity and the chord complexity. It's not 12 bar or anything like that. There's more going on.
I think when this is probably a bit of a generalisation, but when people hear of jazz musicians, they'll think of John Coltrane, Miles Davis.
Yeah.
I think of people like Alan Holdsworth, who are more modern jazz.
It's sort of it's interesting because you get different feels.
Yeah.
But this might just come from my direction only, right? Not only about 4.5 months ago, I was at Ronnie Scott's.
Okay.
And I'd played there a couple of weeks before that, but I got to see Marcus Miller play there. And I thought, all right, this will be good. And he's incredible, and he doesn't play upright, but he plays the shit out of an electric.
Oh, right,
We
okay.
can say that, can't we?
We can. So you can swear? If that's your natural inclination?
Not really, no, I'm not quite that bad. And then, say, he also played bass clarinet, played the crap out of it. Yeah. And it was very funk orientated. So the intensity in the room was like, whoa, you could feel it. And then maybe this is because I'm more in the direction of what I'm about to say. But he said, well, I'd like to play you a song I wrote many years ago for Miles Davis. And he said, I haven't changed it or modified it. I'm going to do it as I presented it to Miles in the early days. And it's a swing. Now, for me, like, when they started playing it was just swing, but the whole room went like, whew, like, it was like someone had this rubber band and they just let it come back in like that, and the whole room was relaxed for about 5 minutes while they did this number, and then he was back to the other thing. But I noticed people were tapping their foot actually around the club. And it wasn't most probably because he's a funk player. My analysation of it was that he played perfect timing, played every note well, but it didn't. It was more like boom, 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 boom. Instead of ba-dum, boom, boom, ba-dum, boom, ba-dum, it didn't have that little backbeat to it,
Right.
That feel of that style, So, but mate, that guy's incredible. So you get all these different sorts of people. My favourite bass player is Stanley Clarke.
Okay.
Because he can play the hell out of an upright and the electric. Yeah. Like he's equal on both.
And they're two very separate skill sets.
Well, the tuning's the same.
Yep.
But you haven't got any frets on an upright, and the spaces between the frets are like nearly double the width, give or take. I actually cheat, and I know other people that cheat worse than me. I was talking to someone actually who's quite a well-known bass player, originally from Northland, who's in America. Yeah. And he had a play on my upright bass, and I said, actually, I've got just on the side a little white dot. I've got G, A, and C. Just there. Yeah. And I can work out all my spacings around that.
That's
he
brilliant.
said, I wouldn't worry about that, John. He said, I have dots for it where every fret is. I said, I was amazed. I was really amazed, yeah. But he's more of an electric player. Yeah. So everyone's different. But, it's sort of like, I suppose my big thing is vocals. It's not being a bass player, really. If I didn't sing the way I do, I would get work as a bassist, but I wouldn't work anything like I do with that combination of playing upright and singing.
Right, okay.
Yeah, because I'm in the cracks all the time, and I'm trying to work the vocal and the bass as not juggling balls. It's weirder than that. Like someone says, well, do you follow the bass when you're singing, or do you follow the voice? And I've even said to some drummers, if you ever get lost, just with the time feel, because I'll change time feels a bit. I don't really consider the drummer too much, or I don't consider anyone else. This is what I do, and hey guys, jump on board.
Do you sort of muck around with time signatures and stuff?
Yeah, right. I do a little bit. Yeah, without being too crazy. Yeah. And I say, well, if you lost the bass time feel, keep listening to the voice, because the voice will always be insinuating where it's at.
Okay, so
I have more freedom and total control singing than what I do as a bass player.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just sort of about to ask you, do you is your voice essentially like a 4/4, and the bass kind of in the different signatures? Does that move around in the space, really, or kind of the other way around?
Like say if I go, I can do that automatically with the bass
Yeah.
and the voice singing it
Yeah.
without practicing that first.
So that's that sort of syncopation, right?
It's automatically in my whatever. It's part of what I do.
What's in your repertoire, yeah?
Not in the repertoire. I can dial things like that up on the spot, I suppose. Yeah, it's digging from what's tucked away in there somewhere.
Yeah,
So I like to think that my strength is my vocal, not my bass playing. No,
wow.
no. I'd say, I bought a couple of things later we can listen to that you'll hear, even if I sing with a good piano player like a modern type player.
Yeah,
we can bounce off each other, like having a conversation.
Yeah,
I think that's maybe what is jazz. People say what is jazz? Jazz to me is not playing the same thing the same.
Yeah,
each time you play it, and just being able to express it a different way. I do a couple of Beatles things. Norwegian Wood I'll do as a 3/4.
Oh wow!
So the bass line would be I once had a girl.
Oh yeah, yeah,
and then go into a 3 swing. She asked me to stay, and she told me to sit anywhere. Boom ba doom, boom ba doom, boom boom 2 3 1 2 3.
Yeah.
Boom 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 da da ba doom ba doom.
Oh wow!
Boom boom boom, bum bum bum. And back to 3/4.
Yeah.
And things like that, or the one that gets drummers going, the Beatles one I like to do sometimes is Fool on the Hill,
Okay.
which is more like a boom, 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 ba-da-ba-da, boom. And I've got to be careful if I counted that in too fast. And I do it sometimes when I do it, but because I bought it, then I can slow it down. Because no one's playing yet, you see, so I can do boom, 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 ba-da, ba-da, boom, boom, ba-da. And I try to get
nice.
And then day after day, down on the hill, and then and then to make it different than the Beatles, and then do, say if we C, we go to B flat.
That almost seems like a little bit of big band.
Yeah, it's a mixture of all sorts, licorice, all sorts, really.
Yeah.
And then see the sun going down, lies in ahead, say, which is F minor, and then I'll do like a B flat ninth. See the world, bum bum, and then go C sharp, spinning round, bum bum, back to C. So you can pull the melody's the same, but you can pull it.
In different directions,
directions, and still have people listening knowing that it's full. Oh, yeah, that's Full on the Hill. Oh, what the hell's he done to it? He's buggered it up, sometimes I bugger it up too, but so it's sort of,
Oh, wow. Now, you've been a jazz musician for, let's say, a number of years.
Well, when I grew up, at the age of 12, 13, I started to play. I bought a Ray Charles record. Yeah. Ray Charles to me is there's a few people that I think will never be, the same again. One is Ray Charles, one is Aretha Franklin.
Oh yes. She was unique.
Yeah. And some musicians, Charlie Parker, Coltrane,
Birdman,
Stan Getz.
I've heard of that name before. Yeah,
great tenor player. So I like to think of those people like that. More so, Ray Charles had a huge influence on me because when I went to high school, we started playing in bands, and they were pop bands. But I always wanted to do things like Tell Me What I Say. And Unchain My Heart, Boom, ba-doom, boom, 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 Unchain My Heart. you
Yeah,
know?
that was.
And
Yeah.
it's got sort of little jazzy chords in it, whereas you can go, unchain my heart, baby, let me be, and that you'd think if it was A minor, the next chord would be D minor in a pop
that would make sense,
terminology.
yeah.
But if you actually do an F ninth, unchain my heart, don't. Because you don't care about me, and then you do the D minor, dun ba doo doo doo, da 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 da, then F, boom, ba doo doo doo, ba doo doo, then F, da da da, E, da da doo, ba doo doo.
Far out.
So just little changes. I like to do little changes like that with some things, like Work Song is another one where do ba doo ba ba da boo ba 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 doo ba ba da ba. Then F minor, and then what I like to do is like a B ninth.
Yeah.
B flat, A flat, and then F, B flat, E flat, A flat, C sharp, C, F.
Wow, yeah. I'm just in my head. I'm trying to picture it on a guitar fretboard.
Yeah. So it's just sort of they're quite simple things.
Yeah.
But they're effective, and it doesn't interrupt the melody. The melody can still flow exactly the same through that. Or if you want to you can bend that melody, but make it still sound like it's cool. You know.
What sort of, like you said you're quite young, 12, 13 years old when you kind of got into jazz and then found your way through Ray Charles.
I didn't really get into jazz then. I liked things like Ray Charles.
Yeah.
And then when I was about 13, I played rhythm guitar then.
Oh, okay.
And
was that what you started on?
Yeah, I playing guitar at school.
Wow.
And I actually was at the Whangarei Intermediate School, and the teacher said, "Who's got a guitar?" And I didn't have one, but my brother had one. And so I said, I've got one. Bring it to school tomorrow. And some of the kids in the school, particularly Maori kids, had guitars.
Oh, right.
Because they all played music.
Yeah.
But I didn't play. So I brought the guitar along, and the teacher said, well, let's get everyone up in front of the class to play. Well, of course, I made a fool of myself. But I was great because I took it to school after that every day, and then a couple of the kids showed me like two chords really.
Yeah.
And I used to strum the heck out of two chords. And then my sister knew a guitar player that played in town who had good chord knowledge, and he showed me a few things and used to leave me his 50-watt amplifier. I mean, I'll get on to something else interesting that you'll love to hear in a minute. And anyway, so all of a sudden I was playing diminished chords, I was playing ninths, I was playing minor sevenths, minor sixths, jazz type things, but then I was playing in a pop band. But before I played in the pop band, in the high school band, I used to get invited because I could play these rhythm parts to things like Quando Quando and The Girl from Ipanema. I could play all that stuff. So I'd get invited by all these old men who used to do all the balls, country balls around Northland.
Yeah.
They used to have like the JC's ball or the Yugoslav ball.
Yeah.
And they used to, remember those old dances where they used to spin the bottle?
Yes.
And it would be the snowball waltz or the Tennessee waltz. And there were some obscure waltzes. And anyway, I learnt to do that. And then at high school, we formed a pop band.
Yeah.
But when I say they were old men, they were only about 21, 22.
Right, really?
Because I was 13.
Ancient.
And I saw them as being like, more over the hill than I am now,
Yeah.
And they were all well-known Whangarei players. And I'll name drop some of them because there was people like Harry Mann, Ewan Simpson. There was Pete Brown.
Yeah.
I played with as well. And after that, and Taffy Jones is another good friend of mine, a good drummer. He's actually lives nearby me and still plays a bit now.
Oh, wow.
So, they were all my mentor type people, really, in music terms. Not so much the young pop people.
Were they kind of in your formative years as you were sort of developing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I saw that as something special. But talking, I did mention just casually Okara Park
yeah, we were talking about that inside before, yeah.
Yeah, and I opened that up in 1966 with Larry's Rebels, and the sound system for 3,000 people was 40 watts. There was a guy in Whangarei,
40 watts.
Yeah, an old man in Whangarei, Mr. Walker.
Yeah.
And he used to have this old valve in a box.
Yeah.
With 4 knobs and 4 mics. No bass, no treble, no monitors.
Yeah.
And he had little boxes like about that deep, about that square, with a 20-watt Philips speaker in them.
Oh, wow.
And he used to strap big wooden flares off the top and the bottom.
Oh.
These boxes sounded incredible to us.
Yeah.
This was big stuff for us because we all had 15 and 20 watt amplifiers. This is before the Jansen 50s and all that era. And, so we played there, and it was like we'd really hit the big time, and funny thing is, everyone in that park could hear the band. Like that still sounded pretty good in those days. Relative, I know, not like a festival today,
Well, yeah, but nowadays, it's interesting. Like, I went to, I think, the last Fritter Festival,
right, that
they had down at, was it Seminoff Stadium now? I think it's called. And they've just got PA for just it's curves, and they've got subs, and there's so much there, but that's because you have to get over the sheer volume of people that are there.
Yeah.
And the sheer amount of talking.
Yeah, people
yelling
talk more than they did in those days.
Yeah.
They used to listen.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, and there's an old saying that actually, if you've got your bass up loud as a player or through a system or whatever, or a DJ, even the louder the bass, the louder he has to drive it, because the rest of it gets swamped out by bass.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's true, and it's...
Yeah.
I saw Stevie Wonder play in Sydney quite a few years ago, and the sound guy just completely buggered up the sound. It was all you could hear was bush, bush, bush of the kick drum.
Yeah.
And I felt like going down and saying, look, listen, even when he did Lately, which is a ballad, like all you could hear was boof, boof, all the way through. And great story about a bass drum.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Came to Auckland once from Sydney.
Yeah.
And we had a fantastic drummer called Alan Turnbull, who was called Tom Terrific.
Alan Turnbull.
Yeah, one of Australia's most famous jazz drummers.
Okay.
And he had a little old kit with him, and we played in this nightclub, and we were a jazz band, and this kid, he'd put the bass drum mic on the kick drum, so it's going, and it was a jazz kit, so it's going boing, 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 and Alan kept saying, oh mate, I don't like the bass drum. He said, oh mate, they love the bass drum in this club, so we played that night, and this kid was running around turning the volume up on the kick drum, nothing. Alan just didn't play the kick drum.
Oh wow.
Just left his foot on the floor and played the rest of the kit.
Yeah,
it
nice.
Sounded great, yeah. So that's a good story about it.
So how long into your, I guess, career, because at this point it is a career.
Yeah, it was semi-professional. I mean, I didn't actually really go professional till about 1976.
Yeah.
I went to Sydney. I used to do a few clubs in Sydney when I was about 18 or 19. Then I came back to New Zealand, and actually I was getting called up to go in the army, and I was freaking out about getting called up to go in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And I was a guy with long hair, it just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So I got called up 3 times, and I got the first 2 times I just kept going from country to country. The third time I went through all the medical, and I thought, I'm history here, but I'd actually put my back out, and I'd been to see a back specialist.
Oh, wow. Yeah, okay.
And when I walked through the final door to get the medical done, the doctor was the back specialist, and he said, you don't want to go in the army, do you? He saw I'd filled everything out wrong.
Yeah.
So he went, and he put the thing through it.
Yeah.
So no, I didn't. And then I went to the UK.
Yeah.
And I sort of found it hard at first, and then I met my wife, and then we were about to buy a house in London.
Yeah.
And then we're having a baby. Hello. So we're going to go to North England, and we went to Newcastle area.
Oh, yep, yep, okay.
And we go out there, and I was going around trying to get to work with local players, but I was seen as an outsider a bit, and I get it.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah.
So they weren't over entertaining, and then it was way before internet or anything. This is 1978 by then, and I saw somewhere written where there was a band, and I'm going over things, but years before I'd done a bit of playing with Peter Poser, and so he was a well-known Kiwi guitar player.
Yeah.
And I'd done
That's
a bit
how I know. POSA, right?
Yeah. POSA, yeah.
Yeah.
Great guitar player, and Peter had me doing a few country things for him with bass and on bass. I've been playing bass way by 1969. I was playing bass. And anyway, so I heard about this band. I went to watch them, and they were like the country band, the Flying Burrito Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
You know
them.
Quite up, good players. And the guitar player said to me, I actually had a little day job because I couldn't support, financially.
Yeah.
And he said to me, do you think you can do the job? I said, yeah, I like the band. It wasn't what I was really into because I was into jazz, but I could play that music.
Yeah.
So he said, right, we'll be in touch. So I went back home, and the next day I was doing my day job.
Yeah.
And on BBC Radio 1, what came on was Dave Lee Travis of BBC Radio 1 Radio, and he made their band, the band I joined the night before, Record of the Week throughout Britain. Yeah. So I rang up the guitar player. I said, is John here? You still want a bass player? He said, yeah, man, we want a bass player. The phone was running hot. It was big time, It was like going from not being able to do a gig with local players in the local village to sort of international type status, really. That gave me, that instilled in me the nous or whatever it is that made me realize you can do this.
Yeah.
And I was so fortunate because they actually turned down ABBA's management and the Beatles, the Rolling Stones manager, because they didn't think they were quite ready for a big management company.
Wow.
And they went with a slightly smaller company, but we got 5 years like all the city halls, the Wembley type gigs.
Yeah.
Hippodrome theatres, all the theatres in the West End of London, and
oh wow,
we used to tour all the time. For 5 years that lasted, and I was lucky. Yeah.
Northland Artists Conversation are incredibly proud to support the Quarry Arts Centre. Quarry Arts Centre, amazing place, located on Selwyn Ave in Whangarei. Such a wonderfully beautiful venue. They are an art gallery, and they have some amazing exhibitions, and they also hold Te Kōwhai Print Trust as well. Another really, really cool artistic endeavour that's done as well. They will have different exhibitions and shows of all different types of medium available as well, and they're such a long-standing venue in the community as well. Highly recommend you checking them out. Fantastic place. Really, really cool to take the kids and family as well. So, Northland Artists Conversation, proud to support the Quarry Arts Centre. How long were you in England for? And you've got this, I guess, medium level management. Where does that career trajectory take you?
Well, before that, when I got to London in 1974, there's a good story actually. I played with a few bands, and I ended up being lead singer for a heavy metal band called Smiler. I mean, I think I lost half my hearing with that band, but I know the feeling. Well, they didn't get anywhere, really. And they were all Londoners, And when I came to New Zealand, or was it Australia? And I saw them I left the band. I couldn't take it. It was so loud. And I saw them about 3 years later at Hammersmith Odeon.
Oh, wow.
And I said, what happened to Rob the drummer? Oh, mate, he's gone all bloody weird. He's cut his hair off. He's gone and formed a stupid band called The Jam.
No!
Yeah, really.
The Jam!
He wasn't so stupid, was he?
No, he's not.
No. So
that's such an influential band.
Yeah, well, he made it, and funnily enough, about 3 years ago, and this is 50 years later or something like that, we were down South England having a holiday, my wife and I. Where was it? It was one of those Portsmouth type places.
Okay.
And anyway, we saw a poster for Smiler.
No.
And I wanted to go and see them that night, but we had to head back to London, and that would have really topped it off for me, because they're still doing that little circuit, slogging away. They're not going really anywhere, but they obviously love doing what they do.
Could you imagine having gone and then been asked to jump on stage for a couple of tracks?
Yeah, well, no, I wouldn't have, no. So I suppose, and that was one of the threads that I had. I also played with another band called Freewheeler, which was an organ trio, which was a good band. Wow. I played bass and Hammond organ, very good Hammond organ player, drummer, who were I don't know if you remember the band The Peddlers. Roy Phillips actually lives in New Zealand now, fantastic organ player, singer. So that Freewheeler sounded like The Peddlers.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm aware of The Peddlers.
Actually, in the country band, we got booked to do a big outdoor festival in Portsmouth, and we were the only English band on this country music festival. Yeah, and it was the who's who. It was Johnny Cash, Glenn Campbell, Hoyt Axton, Merle Haggard, Hank Williams Jr., the Nashville Super Pickers with Buddy Emmons, Crystal Gale, and a whole lot of others.
That is a who's who.
Yeah, and us, little old us.
Yeah.
And we were the smallest paid act. And they had those circus tents out the back of the stage in those days.
Yeah.
And it was a massive sound system. It was all American crew. And we heard a whisper through our management that we mightn't get paid. So the drummer in our band, tough little Irish guy, he razzled up the people who were running the show and got the cash out of them, made them hand cash over. Yeah. And the next day in the papers, all the big guys, all their checks bounced. Yeah. They didn't get paid a bloody thing except for us. Yeah. That was quite funny.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But it's a fickle business, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Because here was me trying to get somewhere, and no one wanted to know about me really, even in the smaller towns in the northeast of England. Yeah. And next minute, I get this job playing with this band who was getting international play like every hour for a week on Radio 1, and then Power Play of the Month Radio Luxembourg.
Wow.
It was big.
Yeah.
And then all the local musicians are saying, "Oh, John, it's great. Come along anytime and have a play with us,"
Yeah.
You know, so it's a fickle. It's like anything, you know. It's no different than any type of job, really, when it comes to that. It's just, it is what it is, you know.
How were the 80s and 90s for you? Because
Well,
we've obviously spent a bit of chunk of time in the 60s
yeah,
and 70s.
so
80s and 90s seemed like a very different time, music-wise.
Yeah, well, I went from. I wrote quite a lot of interesting sort of music, a little bit like the Jam, Come the Police.
Yeah, nice. Oh, nice. Yep.
Yeah, around the early 80s while I was in that band touring.
Are we talking early Police or
Yeah,
later
early,
on? Okay.
no, early type
Yeah.
Police stuff, and with a trio, just guitar, bass, my voice, electric bass, and drums.
Yeah. The Power Trio.
Yeah, it was quite driven sort of sound.
That's very the Police as well, right?
It was very that sound. And we didn't really do anything, but I've got some recordings of it, and we should have pushed that band, because I thought that had legs. But anyway, so that was in 1978. I joined the modern country band, and by 84 it had sort of tapered out by then.
Okay, right, yeah.
We're still working, but you know, and the lead singer and guitar player in that band, he I suppose he was quite egotistical. He had played with Bowie, and he was in Bowie, Spiders from Mars and stuff.
Yeah.
So he was, I thought he was a pretty big star, and he's no longer with us now. And so my wife said, we came for a holiday to New Zealand. We passed through Sydney on the way back.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And we loved Sydney. So we decided we're going to move to Sydney.
Okay, yeah.
And we
Lovely
arrived,
city,
arrived there in 84 and stayed there for 35 years.
You loved it so much.
We were 11 years in the UK and then 35 in Sydney.
Yeah.
And then I formed quite a few bands, and we were doing good club work and stuff. But I found, like, forming these bands, and they were really like traditional sort of jazz, rhythm and blues type bands that I had good players, and they still play in Sydney, these guys, a lot of them. But, you know, people would come and go, and I could never hold the band together. And I thought, I'm going to form the John Leigh Calder Band, which is my middle name. And then
JLC,
if anyone leaves, the band it's John Leigh Calder type thing.
No different from the J. Giles Band, I guess?
No, not in the sense. Well, I didn't have to worry about changing a name.
Yeah.
You know,
you're the constant.
Yeah, I was just going to carry on, and you know, the weird thing about it, when I did that, hardly anyone ever left the band. Then I don't know, not because it was of any reason.
Yeah.
It just seemed to be that they didn't leave, or maybe because they didn't have to own it as much themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was getting all the gigs.
Yeah.
So we used to do like things like the Basement and the Old Soup Plus, which was a great little club in Sydney. We'd do supports for people like Tommy Emmanuel in those days.
Oh wow!
At the Old Soup Plus.
Yeah, my God, what a player!
Yeah,
still a great player to this day.
Yeah, still a great player, and we sort of did. They used to have Darling Harbour Jazz Festival. We did the Manly Jazz Festival a lot, actually. We did that about 5 times. And then the Opera House quite a few times.
Oh, wow.
And things like those. And festivals. We used to go up to Queensland. Didn't go to Melbourne so much, but we'd do the Mackay Jazz Club and Festival. We'd do the Bellingen Festival, played at the Brisbane Jazz. The Brisbane Jazz Club's a great club. It's an old rowing club on the Brisbane River.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. That's got a really good... It's been flooded a few times, but they've managed to get the gear out as well. So that sort of went on, and I employed some interesting musicians. One of them's an old mate of mine. He's pretty crazy. He's actually just turned 85. 84, 85. His name was Dave Glide, and he was the front man for the support band for the Beatles, Sounds Incorporated. And if you ever Google up some of their old clips,
Yeah.
and people like David Bowie said that his biggest influence for his stage presence was Sounds Incorporated, and what he was actually saying was Dave was his big influence, because Dave was the front man. And I learned a lot from people like Dave, because he could drive. No, I won't go there. But
alrighty,
he was full on. Like, he didn't need to be mic'd up. He was so loud. He could play to a crowd of 200.
Far out.
And not be unmiked and still be loud, you know. But he could turn a crowd on its heels, like, even if it was a bad audience, he could have them eating out of his hand.
Yeah. Well, a lead singer that really commands...
Well, he wasn't a singer.
What was he?
He's a tenor sax player. In my band, I was the vocalist bassist.
Yeah.
But he just had this ability.
Yeah.
He could do a solo and yell out the audience something crazy, and they'd just go, "Whoa, who's that?"
Yeah.
Some people have that.
Yeah.
That you can't say what it is, you know.
That X factor.
Yeah, he played a lot with Little Richard in the early days, and I think he most probably got a lot of it off him.
Absolutely. Well, he was a class performer all of his own.
He was, yeah. Little Richard was quite amazing.
Yeah.
Like, even, someone said, "Well, why do you play the same half dozen songs your whole career?" And he said, "Because I'm trying to make them better." And I get it, and also I think that you don't want to I have a pretty wide repertoire. I can do 3 hours without repeating anything, and I don't need lyrics, it's in my head.
Yeah.
All the parts.
Muscle memory, yeah.
Yeah, but I do give the piano player charts.
You'd have to.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But I it's pretty much, I like it to be like a skeleton.
Yep.
Hopefully, and they can throw the meat on it.
Yep.
So don't be too exact.
Yeah. It's like, here's a reference.
Yeah, it is a reference. Really.
We go from a C to a D sharp, but how we get there might be up to you, for example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't like to have control.
Yeah.
I like to insinuate, and then they can hopefully. And the different players will take it to different levels.
I was just about to say, different players are going to bring different things.
Yeah,
so you'll have some... look, you've probably played... It sounds like you've played with some really amazing players throughout your career.
I've been lucky, yeah.
And
very
I was
lucky, yeah.
just about to say, some of the names you've rattled off, it's like, these are incredible. I'm guessing, much like with any... group of people that you put together, you'll have some that'll really just kind of do the bare minimum to get by, and then you'll have some that you'll really click and gel with and will elevate a piece.
Yeah, well, I like to think that a lot of the players that play with me are better than me. Not as, and that's what, because if they weren't as good as me, then it wouldn't sound good. Yeah. Because I'd be carrying it.
Yeah.
So, like this one guy I played with quite a lot in London. His name's Tim Lapthorne.
Okay.
And Tim is incredible. And I can watch other people play the same number that I do and watch him do it, and it sounds like something else.
Yeah.
And I can't explain what that is.
Yeah.
It's just he can look at a piano and just turn it inside out.
Yeah.
Those
are the players you kind of want to keep, right?
Yeah, if you can.
Yeah.
And they're always in high demand. But there is a thing, I think, with musicians, is that they like to work with you or they don't like to work with you, and you know that.
Absolutely.
And it can be personal, it can be a chemistry.
Yep.
Not even as musicians, but as a person it can be.
Who's got a hang? Who can you hang with? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't like someone, really don't like someone, or, I can say this. I played with a drummer recently in London, and this guy has an incredible reputation, like big reputation, and him and I didn't click at all.
Yep.
Didn't happen.
It's fun. Yeah. When I was doing the band thing, I remember the drummer for the band. He was the one that got me in. He was like, "Hey, here's some demos. Throw some lyrics on them. Do your thing. We'd be super keen." So I did my thing and sent it off to them, and then didn't hear anything from them. Got a call. I think it was about 3 months later, and they were like, "How quickly can you move to Auckland?"
Right.
Because I was living in Hawke's Bay, and I was like, "Oh, wow, it's give me a month." So I moved up. And the drummer and I clicked really well. But what happened is over that period of time, it became myself and the guitarist, the rhythm guitarist. And him and I wrote our whole second album while we were flatting together. We were taking songs to the practice space that were 3/4 complete and saying, here we go, we've got arrangement, structure, we've got a missing bit here, we've got lyrical ideas, and the drummer and I ended up really butting heads at the end. And it's just and he was a very well respected drummer in Auckland. He ran one of the biggest drum shops in Auckland as well. Very, very, very talented guy, could play a wide range of styles, really diverse. But just towards the end of it, I just couldn't stand the guy. But my guitarist and I, we were as a band, we were together for 7 years, but for out of 5 years, it was me and the guitarist the whole way. We just drove that band. And we became the workhorses for it.
You can't say what it is.
No. I still to this day have no idea, and I don't keep in touch with the drummer at all. He lives in Australia, and we just... Like when he left, the split was very bad, and when he left, I was like, oh, cool, right? Well, sometimes you got to cull the dead wood.
Yeah, you do, because it's sort of with musicians, it can be personal.
Yeah,
and even one, maybe two of the players I just touched on.
Yeah,
it could be similar.
Yeah,
I won't go there, but. Yeah, and it's just, it can be chemistry as well, and it also can be egos as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And everyone has an ego of a description.
Yes. Some people have a healthy ego.
Yeah.
Some people are driven by their inner id.
Yeah. I mean, for me, all I'm trying to do is just get better.
Yeah.
I just want to get better. If I wasn't improving, I wouldn't be sitting here talking about music, because I would have given up.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
I think for me, I was like driven in two parts. I wanted to create the song, and then I wanted to do service to the song.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be the one that was the weak link.
No.
The one that was giving 60%.
Yeah.
I wanted to be... Anytime we took the stage, I wanted to be 100%, on. Yeah, and,
you can only do your best.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't do better than your best. And, there'll be nights where no one will turn up.
Yes.
I've had this very recently.
Oh, yeah.
Where you get... There was one night, I think it was about... not long after Christmas, and I was telling you I just go down to Quality Street Mall and I do my little solo thing.
Yeah.
Just with the bass going through a PA and voice. It sounds, for that sound, it sounds good. And I had a whole lot of Americans who were off yachts in the town basin in the audience, and they were clapping and really taking an interest in coming up to me asking, da-da-da-da, what I was doing and how I was doing it, whatever. And you automatically pitch off that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you'll play, even though I don't try to let it bother me. I'll play to no one.
Yeah.
And I'll always try to play at the best level I can.
Yeah.
But if you've got people reacting in that sense, you are going to, whether you like it or not, you are going to perform better.
I mean, I remember doing a tour where we did a show in Wellington and we played to the bar staff.
Yeah, yeah.
And that, that's where you find out who you are as a musician.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Because it's like...
Totally.
Yeah, and it was funny because I remember looking around and like they'd advertised it well. They had lots of posters up. It was Wellington, and it just happened to be pissing down with rain. It was horrible weather, and no one wanted to go out. So we played for the bar staff, and I said to I remember when I was like, "Are we meant to start now? Is there... No, okay, we're going to start."
Yeah, yeah.
And we started, and I just said to the guys, "Let's just do this as a band practice. But let's just have fun with it. Let's entertain the 4 staff that are being paid for no one to be there and drink beer."
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when you're like that. Sometimes when you have a really ordinary night like that, it'll only take one person, and I've experienced this so often, where one person has come up to me as I've been taking my gear out or something, and said, "I really thoroughly enjoyed your performance," and that just makes it for me.
Absolutely,
just that one little person.
So
it's not really about definitely not about fame.
It's nice to play to people, and appreciative people as well.
Yeah, I mean, one thing about London, people are used to going out when it's pissing with rain, when it's snowing, when it's ice. Here, you get a little bit of sprinkle of rain. Oh, we'll all stay home. I mean, if I was going to be critical about people in Whangarei, they go to bed at 9 o'clock at night here. Or it seems to be.
We're getting pretty close there, John.
I know, yeah.
I'm kidding.
Not all. But yeah, they never used to. Is it because we've got like films on our TVs we can dial up and stuff like that? Most probably.
We've got
Internet.
The world on our phone.
Yeah.
We don't need to go anywhere anymore.
No.
Not only that, but I think as you and I were talking inside, the music scene in Whangarei has changed over the years and or decades.
Yeah.
And I think there are some good
that
people
has
trying...
attributed to it.
Yeah. And I think there are some good people trying to do good things to revive
for sure
the music scene. And it'll, if it gains traction, I say if as a caveat, if it gains traction, it's just going to take a little bit of time because people have been so used to going, well, if I go into town, there might be a fight, I might get, I run the risk of getting beaten up, for any sort of dumb reason.
Well,
but it's a very valid reason nowadays.
I would like to see as a trial, skipping away from music for 1 second.
Oh, yeah, go on.
I would like to see, is it the Canopy Market on the bridge there?
Yeah.
Bring that into Cameron Street.
Oh, yes.
Once a fortnight, once a month, I don't know. And also do late night shopping on the same night.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And have all the restaurants open as well. And then what you do is you get one hub of community buzzing around that centre hub. I mean, to me, that would be the most common sense thing to do when you haven't got people going out at night time for entertainment. You could have a couple of bands playing, or whatever, but just have a communal mass around that one area.
Yeah.
I mean, the centre of town is quite dead when you look at Cameron Street
is,
to what it was.
It is now, yeah, absolutely.
Years ago.
Yeah.
It was a real hub of excitement for some people.
Yes.
Years ago. I remember going down there as a kid, and I used to rush home straight afterwards, and it was black and white television days, and I used to like watching Elliot Ness and the Untouchables.
Oh, hell yes.
And then
and
that was real good. That was really, really good. The series. Funnily enough, I bought it not so long ago. The whole collection series of the black and white one. Yeah.
Now this is all kind of... So obviously we're here in mid-January recording the podcast for 2025, but you're actually not going to be here.
No, you'll have to send me it.
That much. Well, it'll go up on YouTube and Facebook. So if you just subscribe to us, you'll see yours come out. But you're off, and I don't mean like for a holiday. You're off.
Well, we're going away. You never say never to anything.
Never say never. No.
No, I mean, like, I feel like I've got unfinished business in London because what happened was about 7 years ago, we stayed a bit with family in London.
Yeah.
And we bought this place here.
Yeah, right.
And we sort of, and I got to start playing a bit in it, and it's taken a while, but more so last year I played at some clubs like Ronnie Scott's, the B3, the B3 club's another popular one, and so a couple of others, and I did some festivals, and I started thinking like, it's not over. I'm nearly 75, literally, and I'm sort of thinking to myself like, there's more in the tank. I haven't finished doing what I want to do yet, and I've proven that I have. To myself, not to people, but to myself. I want to really push it, and if I drop dead doing that, great.
What a way to go though, and what a career.
Yeah, I've been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
It was interesting going back to the 60s. Now I'm just touching on things.
Yeah.
I remember when we used to play around Whangarei, and we were 16, nearly to 18 years of age I was, in that 2-year period. So that 2-year period, let's say go back, just as a matter of what young musicians go through today as a comparison, right?
Okay.
So I'm going out at sort of like 14, 15, and even 13 before the Beatles really hit the scene.
Yeah.
And we were doing like Elvis, Cliff Richard, The Shadows. And I played with my friend Billy Taitoka, who was Billy T. James years later.
Yeah.
But he was a really good guitar player. Billy knew all the Shadows music.
Yeah.
Like Hank Marvin, he knew it off, and he was a funny guy. No one had a tape echo in those days. So do you know how you get things like at the end of the Shadow song they go dunk da link da link da link da link, and the echo would dunk dunk dunk.
Yeah.
So Billy used to go dunk da link da link da link da link dunk 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 with his hand.
Oh really?
Make it sound like an echo, and that was really hilarious.
Yeah.
But but going back to this short time frame, so we go from there. 1965, we were still pretty much not doing Beatles. Then we formed a band in Whangarei called The Clan.
Okay.
And The Clan was, if you ask people of my generation, was the teenage band of the day. Yep. Everyone knew The Clan. So we used to learn the top 10 every week. Bang, 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 for 2 years, and we did all the Auckland Battle of Bands. We won a couple of them as well.
Awesome.
And but we all had the Beatle type boots, the Beatle jacket, Beatle boots.
Yeah.
We were playing in Whale Valley one night, not far down here, and at the Whale Valley Hall, I think it was, where the old kindergarten used to be. I went to that kindergarten, and we were playing, and it was all straight kids all dancing to the sort of modish looking band, and at the back door these two guys and this girl walked in with beards and long hair and flowers in their hair, literally. And she had a mini skirt and bare feet, and we all went, whoa, what's that?
Yeah.
And within 3 months, everyone looked like that.
Oh, it had all changed.
Yeah, when that guy brought out, if you go to San Francisco, be sure to wear some flowers in your hair. Scott Walker, or was it? That changed.
Yeah.
That changed. The hippie movement came overnight, literally, and it was at the same time. Like I was talking about my friend who was in Sounds Incorporated with the Beatles.
Yep.
If you look at the Beatles at the Shea Stadium in New York in 1965, and Sounds Incorporated at Shea Stadium as well, they had no monitors. They just had column speakers going all around, like the football ground, all facing out to the audience.
Yeah.
And the band up on stage just playing with their amps. No mic up.
No.
And just the vocals all pumping out through the vocal mics and through the amps. And within 18 months, of that happening, we were playing through 20-watt amplifiers.
Yeah, yeah.
And within a year period, we were all playing through 50 and 100-watt Jansen amplifiers. Like, there was a huge shift in PA and amplification.
Yeah.
Like, we once went to New Plymouth. I joined another Auckland band called the Green and Yellow, who did win all the battles of bands in Auckland. Did quite well in the day. And this agent didn't pay us a fee at New Plymouth one night. He said, I didn't make any money.
Yeah.
So we're coming over those ranges, on the way back to Auckland, the big high ranges.
Brynderwins?
No, it was another one coming back from New Plymouth.
I can't remember the name of them.
And there's a car park at the top. This is the next day.
Yeah.
And guess what? There's a Vauxhall Wyvern at the top with the axle and the wheel sticking out that far. And guess whose car it was? It was the agent's.
Of course it was.
The agent's car somehow, funnily enough, ended up at the bottom of the ravine about 1,000 feet down.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't know how it happened. But anyway.
Yeah.
And we didn't get paid.
But, you know what? It sucks that you're leaving. Because I feel we could do this again. Comfortably.
Well, there's plenty of stories.
You've got so much more stories. But you know what? Let's do this. You're heading over to London to live.
We could do one online.
We can do a remote one, absolutely. And if you do find yourself back in Whangarei, even for a visit, reach out to us.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah,
we would love to have you back on, John. This has been just so cool. So many names of artists that I haven't heard of or thought of for years. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, well, I suppose, look, we're all coming and going. We're only on borrowed time, aren't we?
We are.
All of us.
Yeah.
We're all passing through.
Yeah.
I was just on my way up here before I came here, and I was visiting two old friends who are not well, like really not well.
Yeah.
And so I was a bit flat when I first arrived here. And that's a real eye-opener. We are only passing through.
Yeah.
Where we actually have just been loaned this spot.
Yeah.
For the time being.
Yeah, we're just renting space.
Yeah. I think there's, not to sound commercial, but I think there's a real good saying that New Zealanders and the New Zealand government should embrace on all sides.
Okay.
Is what John F. Kennedy said, don't ask what your country can do for you, but what can you do for your country? And New Zealand desperately needs that now.
Yeah.
Because, we're living in a generation where people want instant gratification, and it's what can it do for me, not what can I do for it. You
know what? That's why producer Andrew and I met and started this podcast, because this is an opportunity for us to give back to the Northland community.
It's very important.
So we may not be at a national level, but you know what? I'm okay with a regional level.
Yeah. Well,
I'm very proud of the work we do. Things
come out from all sources and from all packages.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I had a thing happen here last year, and we played for the Whangarei Jazz Society.
Yeah.
And I was in Onarahi one day, and there was a kid busking on the side of the road. He's moved to Christchurch now, and I really liked what he was doing. I don't normally listen to buskers, not for any reason, but I did, and I could hear Jeff Beck a bit, in his guitar playing. And I asked him he said, I never heard of him. And I'm like, okay. And I said, well, listen, come down to my place and have a little blow with me. And I told him what I did, and which I'd never, ever do. And he came down, brought his guitar down. We had a good play. And I said, listen, next week I'm playing for the Whangarei Jazz Society. Come along.
Yeah.
Bring your guitar and your amp. And he had a little amp. And I'll get you up to do 3 numbers with us.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And he was like a pig in the poo. He loved it.
Yeah.
And the audience were blown away by this kid. He's really good.
What's his name?
I can't remember his name
okay.
off the top of my head. Honestly, I can't. I have his name on my phone. I've been in touch with him once or twice. That's what happens as you get older. I'm pretty good at names. But anyway, he sounded great, and it was those sorts of things are gold moments.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When that happens. Yeah, I really like it,
That's cool. What a great story to end the podcast on.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming and sitting down with us, John.
Thanks
I've
again,
really
Mark.
appreciated it. That's awesome.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. There you go, everyone. Mr. John Leigh Calder. What a guest. Producer Andrew, welcome for 2025.
Hello.
What do you think of John, man?
John was insane.
He was
like not in a bad way.
Yeah, like not like I'm fearing for my life, going to stab a guy, but he was just insane.
It was
insanely cool.
Yeah, what was really interesting was I've just sitting here and listening to this, I've realized I'm a pure lyricist.
Yes.
Because describing music was the way I kind of think about lyrics, and seeing it flow through his mind and then translate to his hands and stuff. And I see like all the mannerisms are similar to a lyricist.
It's really
quite cool.
I couldn't agree more. I think the really interesting thing is, like, I guess the first quarter of the podcast, he goes like, and then we were doing notes and like do 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 do, as opposed to do do do, and I was like, fuck, this is like a real masterclass in jazz stuff.
Because like he just kept going with it. Yeah, I was like, holy shit, I can't keep up.
Oh yeah,
and that's jazz though. It's very fast paced.
It is, and his fingers moving with it as well.
Yeah.
It was just brilliant.
Come through in multiple ways.
Yeah. What was the one takeaway for you, apart from the lyricist thing?
Probably the, not to put a dampen on everything, but like the similarities between what I've experienced, I guess, doing music myself and having multiple members and have them shit the bed and leave.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes. And it's, every time I hear that, I'm kind of like, fuck, it's no different, to anything I've gone
You know what?
through.
I think it doesn't matter what genre of music it is.
Yeah.
It's going to be the same.
I will say this, in hip-hop, there's no creative differences. There's just ego.
Yeah,
and that's it. Like, I'm guilty of that too, but,
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah, but it's kind of refreshing to hear that you're kind of not alone on that.
Yeah. I think the big one for me was just hearing all the... He talks a lot about the different well-known musicians and the people that he's played with that are adjacent to them.
Yeah.
And quite closely adjacent as well.
Very interesting.
Like 1 or 2 degrees of separation. You're like, holy shit.
From completely cracking it.
Yeah. He's like going... I never saw myself as a professional musician, yet I've played with blah, 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 blah. Like, and they played with this guy and this guy and this guy. And it's just like, what the hell, man?
Yeah. But he also kind of blew up himself by just joining a band.
He did.
Didn't even get to play, and he was on #1 radio and blah, blah, blah.
But how smart is that? A record just drops and then all of a sudden explodes. He's like, hey guys, so I still need a bass player?
Do you still need me? Or
yeah. And they're like, yeah, man, we need you now, bro. But, and that also goes to show the right place, right time.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, man.
It is, and it's,
It's so crazy and so cool at the same time.
I've lived kind of like it's mainly who you know, but I think that's a small town thing.
Yeah, definitely.
To hear his stories and how, but even I think there's been another couple of I think actors and stuff that have done some big stuff, and I've been like, man, it's. In other cases, it isn't that. It's
some of the other guests that we've had on, yeah, it's been pretty crazy. Just sort of listening to them talk about, well, I happened to be here and I bumped into this guy.
Yeah.
And they were like, do you want to do some stuff? And they're like, yeah. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden...
I've been looking for you all my life.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just crazy. So where can everyone find out more? So if this is the first podcast that you're listening to, thank you very much for choosing to check us out. But we would highly encourage you to have a look or a listen to all of the amazing guests that we've got. And I'll just rattle through them now. Not the guests, but where you can find us. So on video, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. All Northland Northland Artists Conversation, nice and easy. For audio, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Again, Northland Artists Conversation. And if you're a muso and you want to reach out to us, there's a few ways you can do it. You can just email us, hello@Northland Artists Conversation, or just get in touch with us via Facebook, leave us a message on like the YouTube channel, or reach out through Instagram as well. You know, we're pretty open to just chatting with people in as many different ways as possible. But yeah, 2025 is going to be a wicked year, and I think we've started it off absolutely strong. I'm going to quickly throw back to the wide now. So yeah, as I said, 2025, we've got a few cool guests lined up already. There's a couple that I'm working on in the background to try and get. One of them I've met, I've had a talk with him. He's an incredibly cool guy. He had to quickly fly out of the country to go shoot a sequel for a major motion picture, and then when he comes back into Whangarei, I'm going to try and catch up with him. I'm going to try and get him in the chair and actually sit down and do a podcast with him. He was super keen when I caught up with him last year, so that'll be cool. We're also going to try and see if we can get some incoming acts as well. The wonderful people at Forum North are going to provide us with a little bit of assistance, and we'd love to have some support from 116 as well. That'll be cool. I used to know Georgia May Russ, but she's been gone from 116 for a little while. So if you know anyone or a person that I can contact, please reach out to us and let me know. That'd be great. So 2025, we've started off strong, and we're going to definitely keep it that way. With the format that we sort of started doing last year, with the rapid fire one week and then the podcast the following week, it worked very, very well. Our viewership went up, our listenership went up as well, and people started becoming more engaged. So thank you to everyone that's been with us from day dot. That's been awesome. And thank you to the new listeners and viewers. Man, spread the word. Spread the word. We're going to be leading into our third year. Hard to believe, 3 years doing this podcast. And, we've had some great times, and we're looking forward to having some more. So on behalf of myself, Mark Kelly, producer Andrew, editor Leigh J, and the rest of the team from 5 Elements Media who bring you the Northland Artists Conversation, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you guys real soon.